right. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining the Kuali Research September Community of Practice, formerly our Hot Topics webinar. I'm going to go ahead and get started. My name is Andrea Martin, and I'm a trainer and client support analyst here at UCSD in the Office of Contracts and Grants. If this is your first time attending one of our monthly webinars, we try to keep them under 30 minutes, and our goal with this Kuali Research Community of Practice series is just to go over any updates, best practices, as well as some of the common questions that we are receiving from UCSD's KR Help Desk. So we can show you all some of the best practices and how to perform those tasks. If you have any questions as I'm going through the topics, please feel free to type your questions into the chat. Pam Talarita, who is also on the KR training and client support team, will help answer them and chime in as well. And if we are not able to answer your question, we will be sure to reach out to you afterwards with an answer. So let's take a look at today's agenda. So today we'll be going over the process of submitting an invoice, how to search for the supplier site ID, and I'll also point out where you can find our Kuali Research knowledge base articles. So I'm just going to hop into KR. And so right now I'm in an outgoing Subaward record. So from here, before you do submit an invoice, you do want to just double check a couple fields that are very important just to make sure everything goes smoothly. The first one is this requisitioner field. You want to make sure that this has the correct person that will be approving the submitted invoice. Sometimes we will have people submit invoices, but then it goes to the action list of somebody who doesn't work at UCSD anymore. So it's important to make sure that whether this is you or a designated person in your department that approves the invoices, you just want to double check and make sure that this field is up to date. And then another important field here is the supplier site ID field. As a reminder, this field pretty much controls where the invoice check is going to go. So very important that this is also correct, so the money ends up where it is meant to be. Once you've confirmed that those two fields are correct, I'm going to navigate into this financial tab. And then I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom of the screen, down into the invoices section. And from here, we're just going to click on that Add Invoice button. Perfect. So now we're creating the invoice. For the description, it is best practice to enter the Subaward ID and the UCSD PI's last name. Perfect. And then moving on down, I'll just enter the invoice ID. Best practice is to just enter exactly what's been written on the invoice itself. Then the start date of the invoice. And the end date. The amount released, this is the invoice amount. And then the effective date is going to control when this invoice can be approved. I'll just enter today's date. And then for attachments, you can add the invoice. Perfect. So I've entered everything in those required fields. We also have this notes and attachments section. If you would like, you don't have to, but you can use the section to upload documents, including the PI's approval of the invoice and or backup documentation just for audit purposes if you would like. And then now I'm just going to hit submit. And we can see I have that green notification, just confirming that the document was successfully submitted. So once you hit submit, it will go to the Subaward's requisitioner for approval in their action list. So I'll actually go back into the invoice section. And search for my Subaward again. Okay, so back in the financial screen, I'm going to scroll back down. And now we can see in the invoices section, after I submitted an invoice, we can see it is listed here with the information I entered into it. And we can see that the status is en route. So that means that the invoice, again, it's been submitted, but it has not yet been approved. Once this has been approved, the status will update to final. So next I'll navigate to my action list. As a reminder, your action list is in your common task screen. So I'm just going to go into my action list, and then we can see the Subaward invoice is listed here. And I'm just going to click on that blue linked ID number. Here, again, we can just kind of verify the information, make sure that amount released amount looks good. And if everything looks good, you can go ahead and click approve. If it doesn't look good, you can hit disapprove. Sometimes once invoices are submitted, you'll see that although a different number was entered in the amount released, sometimes that will update to one sit. When that happens, it just means that there were not enough funds to pay the invoice, and that funds need to be added to the Subaward. So if you do see an invoice for 1 cent, unless you get an invoice for 1 cent, which probably never happens, those should always be disapproved. So please just watch out for that. And then once you have added enough funds to pay the invoice, you can then resubmit the invoice yourself again. So I'm just going to click approve. And I'm going to, let me refresh this. So when we scroll back down to the invoices section, we can see right after I clicked approve, the invoice status then updated to final. When it's final, it means that you can then go to Oracle and continue to check in Oracle for your status updates on the invoice and see if it's been sent out. Do you want to add anything, Pam?
No, not right now. Excuse me, I did answer a couple questions in the chat. One of them was something we talked about earlier, Andy, and that was clearing out the action list. I don't believe that we can clear out the action list. A lot of the stuff in the action list could be just an acknowledgement or an FYI letting you know something. I think when you have an action to take in the action list, though, like you need to approve an invoice and you approve it, I believe it does fall off the action list. We can verify this with the people in Kuali and ITS and let you know. It may take a few days though. Also, David Grayson asked the question about uploading invoices into Payment Compass, and I did answer in the chat. However, I wanted to let everybody know that I know that a lot of you have been told that you should be uploading your invoices if you get them from the subsite into Payment Compass. I personally think that this is a ridiculous thing for you to do, to go into Payment Compass and upload that invoice, because you can do it, because then you have to wait for disbursements to look at the invoice, upload it in Kuali, doing everything that Andrea just showed you how to do. And that can take 7 to 10 days. So you can do this process in literally 5 minutes and approve it, and then you're done. So if your subsite emails you that invoice, you can just put it right into Kuali yourself.
Perfect. Thank you, Pam. Yeah, definitely a way faster process. So next, I'm going to go back into that first Subaward screen, and then we can review how you would find the supplier site ID. So
Andy, I want to answer another question in the chat if you're okay. Karen asked, how can I know if the sub K is ready or not to submit the first invoice? Okay, so if you have submitted your initial subaward and it is en route to the subaward team, it will say en route up in the right-hand corner of the subaward screen. Yeah, right there. When it's marked final, and on the subaward screen, if the status has been changed to active, that means that the subaward team has finalized your documents. You can also go into the notes, comments, notes, and attachments screen and click on attachments, and right there, and you can typically, when they have finalized the agreement, they upload it here and it says finalized agreement. Also, you should receive a notification along with the subsite and the attached documents from the subaward team.
Perfect. Thank you, Pam.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. I'm going to go back into that first Subaward tab. And let's say you do need to update the supplier site ID. The first step, and I also have a knowledge base article with all the steps I'm about to go into. I'm also recording this so I can supply both the recording and the knowledge base article to all of you after the class today. But the first step is you want to go to the subrecipient field and click on that small book icon. And what we're looking for is this vendor code. So I'm going to just copy that vendor code. Sometimes people think that's what the supplier site ID is, just that vendor code, but that is not the case. However, you do need the vendor code in order to locate your supplier site ID. From there, you need to get into the supplier site ID report. So if you have WalkMe installed, which is just a browser extension that kind of allows us to put an overlay of resources available to you. For example, if you don't have the WalkMe browser extension installed, you will not have this button or this smart tip available to you. I'll include this to my email with you as well, but here is a knowledge base article with a couple quick steps to see if you do have WalkMe installed. In there, the chat real quick. But if you do have WalkMe, you will see this button. It will take you directly to the supplier site ID report in Oracle. We also have the smart tip here that kind of gives you the breadcrumbs on where you can click and to find the supplier site ID report. I already have it up here in Oracle, and I got here by clicking on the supplier site ID button. Once you get there, you can export this, which I think is easier than searching through here. And then you'll have this Excel file. And from here, you want to take that vendor code and search for it in the supplier number field. I'm just going to, oops, don't want to search for the walk me link. I think it was 1, 2, 5. So this is going to, using that vendor code and searching for it in the supplier number field, is going to pull up all of the addresses affiliated with Brown University that are affiliated with that vendor code. So we can look here and kind of compare with the invoice what matches up. Let's say this last one here is where we actually want to mail the check. Then you would just copy and paste that new supplier site ID. And update it in there. It is important to note that this is a case sensitive field. So you want to make sure if what's in the report is capitalized, that everything is the same here. So probably just best to copy and paste exactly what is in the report into that field.
Andy, can you show them one more time how to get that vendor code? There's somebody asking.
Yeah, so the vendor code, you just want to find this subrecipient field and click on the book icon. So we're looking for Brown University's vendor code. And then you want to scroll down to the bottom of the window. And here we can see the vendor code. That 12555. And then we took that 12555 and searched for it in that supplier number column in the report. And then we chose the supplier site ID that's affiliated with the address that we wanted. And then just entered the supplier site ID in our SSID field.
Andy?
Mm-hmm.
They want to, somebody's asking if you could show them where to find that supplier site ID report again.
Yeah, so I'll actually click on that supplier site ID report. I'm using WalkMe, so it's just kind of taking me through automatically. Sometimes it takes a while, so you do have to be patient. So I'll click next. And it's automatically clicking through everything for me.
And then the thing that I do, because I run this report weekly, is after the report is pulled up, before I download it, I click on in the upper right corner, Andy, if you see the star key, you see it up there?
Yeah, I'll click on it after the.
Yeah. And then you can make it your favorite. That way you can just log straight into Oracle, click on that favorites, and it will take you right into your report. And yes, for Mike's question, yes, Mike, this is the same report that I send out to you weekly. I did put it in the chat, but I do have a list of people that have asked me to email them the report weekly because I download it for myself. And if you want to be added to my list, just send me an email, say, Pam, can you add me to your SSID report list? And you will get the SSID report that I run typically Monday or Tuesday. Typically I send it out on Tuesdays. I'll just add you to it and you'll get it. I'm in a nice, pretty Excel spreadsheet with the filters already on there.
Yeah, so this does take some time, but if you don't want to click through yourself, this will take you right where you need to go. So now we're at the report. Again, I got there just because I have blocked me. I clicked on that supplier site ID report button and it automatically took me to the report in Oracle. And then you can export it from here. Next, I'll show you all where you can find our Kuali Research knowledge base articles. So if you type in Kuali Research on Blink, this is the first page that will come up for you, Kuali Research. If you scroll down towards the bottom of the screen, we have a resources section with a link that will take you directly to our knowledge base articles. So we got there, here's the portal. If you scroll down, we have a few different sections. We have articles just on general research administration. COI has created some articles, so has IRB. And here is our Kuali research section. So we would just click on see all articles. And from here, you can scroll through and take a look. You can also use the search function and use that to see if there's an article that you're looking for. Perfect. Do you want to add anything, Pam?
Nope, I think we're good.
Perfect. Does anybody have any questions? Mike, do you want to unmute yourself?
Sure. So my question is regarding international wire payments through a snow ticket and having to put an invoice in labeling wire. Could you just could go over where exactly the word wire needs to be put in to prevent this payment occurring within Oracle? I think I had only put it in one spot. I've been put in two places, and I just would like to know, like, where does it really have to go for sure to stop a payment?
It has to go in front of the invoice, like the invoice number. So when you upload the invoice into Kuali, if you are the one uploading the invoice, you need to add wire and then the invoice number. If the supplier has uploaded that into Payment Compass, then you need to, and it comes over and then you figure out it's going to be a wire, then you need to disapprove it and re-upload it with wire in front of the invoice.
Okay.
So if you know that they are going to be uploading their invoices into Payment Compass, but you're going to be paying them via wire, you should, try to get them to add wire to the first part of their invoice so that disbursements puts it in as wire.
Okay, good. Now you have capital W-I-R-E. Is it case sensitive?
It doesn't matter.
It just W-I-R-E in some format right there.
Yes, and you can also put wire as the supplier site ID. That won't make it pay out as a wire, but it will stop the integration if you forget.
Got it.
You could, if you know it's going to be there, just put wire right there, and that is your trigger to know, you know what? This is a wire payment. I should have wire in front of the invoice.
Okay.
Number.
If we do make wire in this SSID, does that just for this one, the next time I put one in, it will go back to payment if I happen to have those type of invoices? Does it change it for good by changing the supplier ID right here?
Yeah, it changes it for good. So if you know that you're going to be probably maybe having both, I would keep the SSID as what it should be, like payment check one, but make sure that you upload that invoice and do not approve it until you have wire in front of the invoice number.
Got you.
And that right there is what actually stops the integration.
And the uploaded invoice, does the file name of that attachment need to have wire in it at all?
No, the attachment doesn't need to, just the invoice number.
Okay, very well. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Does anybody have any other questions? Okay, well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Like I said, I'll provide all the links that I mentioned today. And I'll also send you all a recording of today's webinar. Perfect. Thanks, everyone.